over at BangTheBook.com. We are your one-stop shop for sports betting news and information. Got a landing page up with all of our Super Bowl content that's been so far. I'll keep adding to that as we get more, just so it's easy for you to find going into the big game. Daily college basketball picks from Kyle Hunter, daily NHL picks from Parker Michaels. Even though it's Super Bowl week, we're still covering NBA, college basketball, NHL, soccer. We're still covering it all for you over there at the website. So please head on over there, check it out. New month starting here soon, so our monthly contests will reset. You can always join that daily streaker, look to win some cash prizes in that. Be sure to check out our Sportsbook reviews as well, including our look at DSI Sportsbook, where you can use that BTB200 promo code for a 100% deposit match bonus for the Sportsbook, 100% deposit match bonus for the live casino at BetDSI. It's only a game until you bet it. Two guests on the program here today. We start things off with Brian Blessing, the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. Brian, how's it going today, man?
Bundle up, my friend.
Well, I'm staying inside, man. This is one of the nicest things about working. It's one of the nicest things about working from home. I mean, I'll go 2 or 3 days without leaving the house, but also I don't have to go out in this shit.
I hear you, kid. It's funny. I very much work outside. I kind of lock it down. I'm on the patio all day, and honestly, I mean, now, and I'm such a baby. I got like 2 sweatshirts, a hooded sweatshirt, and a vest. And I'm bundled up. I like it out. I'm actually enjoying. Like, I sit outside, but man alive, I live that stuff, kid. But this one that's coming at you is, no, that's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun for the poor souls that have to go out in it. But I was on brand with my video over on our YouTube page today, wearing a nice warm coat and a winter hat. So head on over to our YouTube page, check out my Tuesday 3-pack video, and we'll get some more videos here from Brian Blessing over on our YouTube page this week as well. But Brian, Super Bowl week is here. I imagine by now you're tired of talking about the Super Bowl. I'm getting to that point as well, but still a lot of stuff for us to cover on Bang the Book Radio. First and foremost, side and total, 2.5, 56, not a whole lot of change from last week. Any new thoughts from you on those two betting options?
I'm of the mindset it's a high-scoring game, Adam. To me, the total would be the way to go. Threes, a handful of them have popped up. Game may close 3 on the weekend. I think it's an intriguing game. I think it should be close. And honestly, but I do think it's high scoring. I would look at the over. I could see under in the first half, over in the second half kind of deal. The nerves kick in. But the one thing that has been interesting, the Super Bowl, boy, for a lot of years, the game was just hot garbage. But we've been treated to great games of late. So I don't see any reason why this isn't another really good game.
So you mentioned that you are looking for a high-scoring game here. So do you sort of see that continue as you look up and down the prop bets that you like?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily correlate. I mean, when you're doing the prop bets, it's, who are the individuals that are going to step up to the plate. I could see, the Super Bowl is a weird game. I mean, I could see a defensive touchdown. You can see something goofy on special teams. And, the one thing that is kind of historically valid, I believe, do you play fantasy football?
A little bit. I mean, I dabble a little bit in daily fantasy, more so than the season-long thing.
Okay. Well, the one thing is that in many respects, and I don't know that it's more often than not, but from an individual player prop perspective, the guys that go over the total could actually be across the board on the losing team. If the team gets behind, depending on what individuals you lasso, and from the props, it's the losing team where all of a sudden, which what infuriates me with football generally speaking, but if a team gets a big lead, then all of a sudden they go to a 2-deep zone, play nickel and dime, and they let a team go down the field and go, well, it took them 5 minutes to score. Yeah, well, they wouldn't have scored if you didn't change anything. It's insane. And that always happens at the end of the first half. So, I mean, individual players you're looking for doesn't mean they have to be on the winning team.
What's really tough for me from an individual player standpoint about the prop bets for this Super Bowl is you look at New England, and they have tons of weapons. And it's whoever Belichick really wants to feature, I think, in this game. Is it Edelman? Is it Gronk? Is it White? Is it Sony Michel? Is it Rex Burkhead? Is it Philip Dorsett? He's got a lot of different ways he could go about this. For the Rams, they're playing left-handed with Todd Gurley banged up a little bit right now. Is it Robert Woods? Is it Brandon Cooks? The funny thing for me, though, is the Patriots here, over their 2 playoff games, time of possession, 38-20 and 43-59. If they do that again, and I'm not saying that they will, I don't know if they will, but a lot of guys can get a lot of stats for the Patriots, and a lot of guys could go over their totals, and it can really limit what the Rams are going to do because they just may not have the offensive plays. That's what I'm really wrestling with for the player props right now.
And those are fair points all. And, they don't call holding for the most part in the championship games and the Super Bowl on the offensive line so much. So, and New England's been around this so often, they know that. And their offensive line's been terrific, and they've run the football. And I hear you on the time of possession. That's a big thing. Special teams is obviously very big in any football game, but in a game like this. You brought up a great point about the Patriots, and it's trying to decipher, I think, both offensively and defensively, who's going to be the flavor of the week. And I would say this. I think this is the week that it's James White's turn. 2 weeks ago he had 3 weeks ago he had 97 yards receiving in the first round of the playoffs. Then he just wasn't used. It was all of a sudden, where's Rex Burkhead? Where'd that come from? All of a sudden he's the featured guy. But White has such a penchant for coming up big in big games. White is one of the plays I'd be looking long and hard at, and I think over 44.5 yards receiving for White is absolutely a play I would make. And the other guy that I would take a shot with here is Chris Hogan over 3.5 receptions. Edelman's been going bananas here of late. So if you figure that Wade Phillips is going to do his level best to try to contain Edelman, and that I think in the early stages of this game could give Brady an opportunity to stretch the field and look downfield. And Hogan seems to be the forgotten guy an awful lot. It is amazing. Every time they play the Steelers, it's like, hey, you got to cover that guy. He's like running like a reindeer down the field. So I think White and Hogan are the guys I'm focusing on from the Patriots side of things.
It's such a challenge. I mean, I was looking at a lot of these props, and I wrote up a lot of articles over at BangTheBook.com yesterday. I thought first quarter receiving yards over 14.5 for Julian Edelman was a good play because, he didn't play in last year's Super Bowl. He was targeted 40 times in the first quarter of the regular season, his highest total per quarter. And when you look back to the Super Bowl against Atlanta, Edelman was targeted twice on the first drive, had a rushing attempt on the second drive, targeted on the first play of the third drive, then the first play of the second quarter. So, I kind of look at that, and maybe there's some recency bias in that, but I don't know. It's so hard to figure out, does Belichick want to establish the run first? Does he want to soften up the defense and establish the pass first? Does he use Rex Burkhead to try and make this a physical game early on and then save Sony Michel for the second half? It's hard to put your mind in. You got to basically put yourself between the ears of arguably the most accomplished head coach in NFL history. And it's fun, but it's also challenging from a prop betting standpoint.
Well, I would argue this, that when you try to figure out Belichick, it's actually not that hard. They just execute what makes complete and utter sense. Going into the game with the Chiefs, we did the podcast. We talked about it. Well, what's he going to do? What is his focus going to be? Who will he try to take away? Well, before the game, he said, "Look, if he's smart, he's smart. Belichick is not going to let Tyreek Hill beat him." Well, Tyreek Hill got one long pass, and it wasn't just a fly route. It literally, Mahomes had a run around, and Hill ran from the left side of the field, downfield, and all the way across to the right side of the field. And he didn't have the kind of time all day long to find Hill. So he did that effective job with the cover over the top and took Hill away. All right, to me, disagree if you think, but if I'm looking at how Belichick says, What am I going to do in here? What am I going to, quote unquote, take away from the Rams? I think he's going to say, I'm going to have Jared Goff beat me. I'm not going to let Anderson and Gurley run the ball down my throat. I'm going to try to make them one-dimensional. That would be my best guess. And then maybe they do go with the cover over the top on Cooks on the outside. So I think from the offensive side of things, from a prop perspective, I think the guy who's going to have the big game is Robert Woods. I think the middle will be open to a degree for him, and he's a go-to guy in the red zone. But he's a versatile guy. He can stretch the field. He runs the deep post, and he is a solid possession guy as a hot read. So I like Woods over 72.5 yards, and I like his longest reception over 22.5 yards.
I like Robert Woods a lot, too, here. I think, especially, too, Belichick strikes me as the kind of guy that, because they had Brandon Cooks, he really doesn't want Brandon Cooks to be the guy that beats him in the passing game. I think he's going to, as we talked about yesterday with Joe Everett, probably put somebody like a Stephon Gilmore on Brandon Cooks, and then that obviously gives Robert Woods a little bit easier of a matchup on his side of the field. So I definitely agree with that. I thought you had some interesting takes regarding kicking props on a video you did for us over on our YouTube page. How are you sort of seeing the kicking side of things on the special teams?
I got to be honest with you, but I'm not a real math guy, with analytics and all that other nonsense. I don't know. It has a place, but I think it's overused and counted on too heavily. And I know the analytics geeks get all twisted when somebody says stuff like that. But from a sheer math perspective, okay, here's one that to me makes sense. I don't remember seeing this prop before, and it's number of yards for field goals made at 122.5 yards. The over-under for field goals made in the game is 3.5. If you divide 122.5 by 3.5, that's 35. So they're saying 35 yards a kick. Well, to me, that prop could go under 3.5, but it could still easily go over 122.5 yards if you get 150-yarder. If Zerline hits a 50-yarder and they're comfortable with him, let's say from 55, we know he can make it from 57, but they may play field position. But let's say 55 and in, you get a 50-yarder and a 45-yarder, then the third field goal needs to be 38 yards, and you've gone over the 122.5, and you haven't even gotten to the 3.5 threshold for field goals made. So I from a math perspective, I guess, and from the opportunity, and specifically with the kickers indoors, and a guy, and not sneezing at Gostkowski, but we know Zerline's got the monster leg. That seems to be a play that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree. And also for, as potent as these offenses are, I mean, we talk about scoring offenses and how the final four teams were the top four scoring offenses. Patriots in the red zone, only 15th in touchdown percentage, 59.6%. Rams 18th, 57.5%. So we could see these teams settling for some field goals here, and maybe that prop kind of adds up incrementally as we go throughout the game. But we'll talk some more props in our next segment here with Rolf Michaels. I want to talk NHL with you here, Brian, because this week in the NHL is crazy. I mean, we've got 21 teams that won't play until Friday. We've got teams that haven't played in 10 days because they had their bye week last week. We've got games tonight, Jets and Bruins, Flyers and Rangers. The Flyers and Jets played each other last night, got a chance to knock off the rust. The Bruins and Rangers haven't played since the 19th. Is that a spot you'd look to play tonight?
Yes, and you nailed it. I like Winnipeg tonight, plus $1.60 coming off a loss at Philadelphia. And you look at the number, and Boston's a good team. Numbers inflated. Winnipeg's playing back-to-back nights. Well, Philly to Boston's a nothing hop. I mean, assuming they got in easily, that's a nothing burger. But the fact that they're playing back-to-back nights in this particular instance, and I love the fact that they're coming off a loss, Winnipeg, to me, has the edge. because they got a game under their belt. I mean, they're to a degree refreshed. Their passing should be better. I think they'll have a stone in their shoe that they lost the game last night. They're in a battle with Nashville. Everything you said makes sense. I think the numbers overinflated for that reason, but I think in a weird way they got it backwards in this one particular instance. I do like Winnipeg tonight.
This is one where the price did change when Connor Hellebuck was announced as the starter, so there is that's kind of driving the market here a little bit as well. But still, like you said, I mean, I think being able to knock off that rust, get a game, these guys, and I've talked about this a lot in terms of circadian rhythm and body clocks and what these athletes are like. These guys are used to traveling. They're used to being out there on the road, playing 4 and 6, 4 and 7, stuff like that. I think it helps to return to that level of normalcy. Which brings me to the rest of the week here, Brian. We've got a lot of games on Friday and even some on Saturday of teams that won't have played for 10, 12 days. What do you do in a situation like that where both teams are on equal footing, not having played for a while?
I haven't gotten to Friday yet, but I would look at them, specifically. The goaltenders, I would think it would have an edge. I think the thing that suffers the most, Adam, is passing. And to a degree, maybe the Philly-Winnipeg game, but New Jersey and Pittsburgh, that's the way they play. I mean, they came out in 6-3 with the final score. So, I think it still comes down to stylistically, what is the matchup? And I wouldn't overread too much into it, but maybe if anything, I would just say caution because it's kind of a quirk that, if you did anything, maybe go lightly there. The one thing I would say to the NHL's credit, and again, we're back to the Winnipeg thing tonight, when they implemented the break, I don't know what the teams got. It was like a 5-day break. A lot of it was unbelievable. We were just sitting here. It was an ATM machine. You were just fading the team that was coming off the break. And in many instances, they were playing teams that had been playing. At least now, if like the Sabres have been off, I follow the Sabres closely. They've been off forever, but they come back tonight at Columbus. Here in Vegas, who we follow closely, they continue to be off, and they don't return till Friday. So Buffalo had their break that led into the All-Star break. Vegas had the All-Star break that led into their break. But they've leveled the playing field now to the point where teams are playing teams, for the most part, that are coming off a bye. So the playing field is level. In that instance, the negative tonight for Winnipeg is that they played last night. But is it a negative? Actually, I think it's a positive. But the league's done a better job of trying to level the playing field for teams coming off the bye for all the reasons you stated.
Yeah, that Buffalo-Columbus game tonight, Buffalo hasn't played since January 18th. Columbus hasn't played since January 19th. Buffalo plays Wednesday night at Dallas. That's another spot I'll be looking at where the Sabres get a chance to shake off some rust. By the way, Vegas comes back on the road against Carolina on Friday. So let's touch on that real quickly. Vegas and Calgary both come off the break, both start on the East Coast. Saturday, Edmonton comes off the break to play Philadelphia, who will be playing throughout the week, and play an afternoon game. What's worse, do you think, Brian, playing out on the West Coast as an East Coast team after the break, or playing on the East Coast as a West Coast team off the break?
Honestly, Adam, I don't know that it would matter. Off a break, I don't think it matters. I think the break would mitigate any of those concerns. I would say this. Vegas is firmly entrenched in third place at the moment. Calgary's going to be tough to catch. So they're kind of looking right now at that that first round matchup, playing the second place team in the Pacific. They would need help from Calgary to come back to the pack. But Vegas is playing anywhere near as good as they played last year. They don't tilt the ice on teams the way they used to. I think they're a good team. They find ways to win. Hence, they've got a really good goaltender. So that's part of it. But they come back, and they're heading east, and they play Carolina, Florida, and Tampa. And, Tampa is obviously very tough. But the Carolina and Florida thing wouldn't have scared you. But heading into the break, specifically Carolina, was a team that was making a really good push. So what didn't look like a brutal trip for Vegas has the potential to be pretty tough. I would say this, though. Carolina would strike me to be one of those teams that the last thing they wanted was the break, because they were making a sincere push. They'd gotten themselves very much back in the discussion. And, sometimes that break can just take the air out of the balloon. And Carolina was 6-3-1 in their last 10. And all of a sudden, like I said, they're back in shouting distance and in the discussion to try to make a push to make the playoffs. So I think the break could hurt a team like Carolina feeling their oats, and maybe now they struggle off the break. And then Columbus is another one to watch. I've been waiting for this. Give them credit. They're 6-4 in their last 10, but about a month ago, and they went all the way to first place. I go, well, maybe I was dead wrong about that. But I really think Columbus is a team that has the potential to plummet. And this Panarin thing, I thought was going to be a distraction. Now it's really bad. Panarin has said, "I won't talk to you anymore. We'll talk after the playoffs." Oh, thanks for nothing. Columbus, he's backed them into the corner, and if the Leafs just gave up a first-round pick, a prospect, for Jake Muzzin. But what is Panarin going to be worth on the open market? I think Columbus has to move this guy. And then you got the Bobrovsky thing still hanging over their head. I think there are plenty of distractions between now and the trade deadline on February 25th. I would watch Columbus closely to see how that team reacts.
Columbus is in a really weird spot because you don't want to lose Panarin and Bobrovsky for nothing. But this is also a team that has never won a playoff series. And that is a very rabid fan base. I love going to games down at Nationwide. It's outstanding. I've had the chance to go to a playoff game that was electric. That's a fan base that desperately wants this team to make a deeper run into the playoffs. They probably need Panarin and Bobrovsky to do it. So they are a really interesting team the rest of the way here in the NHL. But
I mean, can they win the cup, right? I mean, can they win the cup? I mean, that's what they've got to say to themselves. If they really think that the way the team is constituted now, if you get in, I've always been a proponent of this. If you get in, you got a shot. We've seen 8 seeds beat 1. The first round's the toughest one to win. Then you win and you get a sense of belief. Maybe there's, they get a stone in their shoe and nobody believes in them and all that, stuff. And Panarin does go bananas, and maybe they could. But if they really say to themselves, we can't, we're just not built to win this thing. How do you not get a lot for this guy? I think he's given you the clear indication he's not going to be there next year by saying what he said now, right? You're talking a truckload of assets for a guy that, and the thing is, if he's already telling you he doesn't want to be there, then you got to wonder about his motivation and how hard he's going to be playing with free agency coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can get out of the Metropolitan. I think the Metropolitan is so inconsistent. I think they could get out of there depending on how they played. I mean, look, I mentioned this before. They were a goalpost away from going up 3-0 on Washington last year in the first round. They were up 2-0 in that series. Won both games on the road, no less. I mean, you never know. There is a lot of variance when it comes to the playoffs, but can they get by Tampa Bay or Toronto? That's a whole other story. At that point, I don't really know. But I want to make sure we spend a little bit of time on the golf side of things here, Brian. Waste Management Phoenix Open, fun event, a blast, annually on Super Bowl weekend. Obviously you've got the Coliseum hole, the par 3 16th. But outside of that, this is a pretty tough course because you've got to make some risk-reward decisions if you want to break out the driver or take that 3-wood.
Yep, and I would just say this again from the numbers perspective. I get it. John Rahm 7-1. The price is no good. Justin Thomas 9-1. As a guy can string birdies together, he can get low. I get it. Honestly, to me, in this one particular instance, and I give the odds makers credit. I mean, they get it with the price that's out there, but I'd make Matsuyama the favorite. He's third choice at 12-1. The guy won back-to-back years, was going for a three-peat last year, and had a wrist injury, had to withdraw. and he played extremely well at Torrey Pines. So in this one particular instance, with a horse for the course angle, I think Matsuyama should actually be the favorite here. But he's on the board, third choice at 12-1. I do like Finau. I think Tony Finau is sitting on a monster year. Ryder Cup was a great experience for him. Schauffele's in danger every time he tees it up. But I think Finau could have a big week. And the bomber for me is Cameron Smith. I think at 30-1. This guy very quietly. I think Cameron Smith is kind of where Xander Schauffele was last year at this time. I think Cameron Smith's going to have a very good year, and I'm going to keep swinging for him, Adam. I mean, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. Sung J M is at 80-1, and I've taken a big lighter. Not big plays, but I've taken a big lighter to money chasing this kid. He's 80-1, but the fact remains, when he wins, and I believe he is going to win, that 80-1 is going to be 30-1 once he wins for the rest of time, and then it's going to go lower and lower than that. So I probably will continue to take a shot at Sung J M. This kid's an incredibly talented youngster.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. We talk about a lot of older guys with coastal courses or, some of these ones in warmer climates. I don't know if this is a course for the older guys, if this is a course for the younger guys, because this is a very raucous atmosphere. A lot of kids from Arizona State come out. There's a lot of drunks stumbling around the course. It's loud. Players actually get booed, which doesn't really happen all that often. So a guy like Sung J M, young, brash, confident, maybe this is the type of event that, really does play well to his skill set. I'll tell you what, one guy that I looked at, right? Yeah, right. One angle that I looked at here, this course, the par fours are very tough. You score on the par fives, you hope to get par on the par threes and the par fours. The birdie holes are the par fives. You get some eagles on those too. Par four scoring. How about Terrell Hatton? He's one of the best on tour here so far this year on par fours. 28.75% birdie or better. That's third. He's 66-1. And I think this is an event, while a lot of Americans have won it, I think because of some of the environments on the European Tour, I think some of those European Tour guys are kind of worth looking at here.
The funny thing is, and that it's amazing you mentioned him, because I almost said him, but for a different reason. But maybe the personality trait will work, because this is an event where, some guys, like Lee Trevino never played well at the Masters, right? I mean, it's a course that favored guys that play a draw. He just walked in there and he was defeated before he ever got there. This is one of those kind of events where, there are going to be distractions, like you said, guys talking in their backswing, or if you hit it in the bunker on the par three, they're booing you. And you've got to be able to laugh at that and embrace it, or some guys will just unravel. And John Rahm's a fiery guy. Sometimes he uses that to his benefit, but it could also undress him too. I would say, by the way, so I don't know about Hatton, because Hatton's another quirky guy. He's one of these guys. You watch his reactions; they're priceless. He's really hard on himself. And, if he embraces the atmosphere, yes, but the atmosphere could hurt him. And you know what? I'm just looking at this and talk about sneaking under the radar. And I hadn't considered this. I watched him Sunday, and I didn't know very much about him. And, he's like 6 groups ahead or whatever. It's Taylor Gooch. So I'm looking this up while we're talking. I said, just based on what I saw on Sunday, just realized his last 3 tournaments, Taylor Gooch was 14th in the Sanderson Farms Championships, and he was 4th in the Desert Classic and T3 in the Farmers Insurance Open. I got news for you. The top 10 players in the world would take that. A 14, a 4th, and a 3rd. Taylor Gooch at 80-1. I'm adding him to my ticket as we're sitting here talking about it.
There you go. There's a nice little long shot there from Brian Blessing, and the host of Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. How can people check out those 2 programs?
Oh, Adam, it's a crazy week. Radio.com shows are archived there. AM 1400 KSHP, noon to 2 Pacific weekdays, with Sportsbook Radio and Vegas Hockey Hotline. It's one of our favorite weeks of the year. Today's a nice, fun, calm day. And then it gets nuts. Tomorrow and Thursday, we'll do the shows, our annual prop shows with Jay Cornegay over in the Superbook. And it's radio, but it's colorful. Oscar Goodman shows up with the showgirls. He'll come on and do the show with us tomorrow. Then he goes over and makes his Super Bowl bet, and the TV cameras all come, and we have a lot of fun with that. But we dive into the props the next 2 days from the Superbook. Friday, I'll be at Sunset Station doing a prop show with our friend Chuck Esposito there. We got more videos. In fact, we'll try to get some videos for you from the Superbook. We're going to have more prop videos at BangTheBook.com. We're